and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Rules, Enactments, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. A copy of the agenda for this meeting may be found on the county website under the tab for the legislature. Please silence your phones and electronic devices. And at this time, I ask that you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doreen, would you be kind enough to do roll call, please?
Absolutely. Lino?
Here.
Fabiano?
Here.
Feller?
Here.
Paduk?
Here.
Ramos? Here. Ravella?
Here.
Segenga? Here. Sutherland?
Here.
All present.
Okay, terrific. So first up, we have Richard Golden, our county attorney. Join us up here. Okay, thank you so much. So first up, we have A1, request to create 2 chief assistant county attorney positions, grade 27, chief assistant county attorney for local municipal matters, and chief assistant county attorney for juvenile justice. Legislative request number 244. Legislators Segenga and Ravella. Thank you. Okay, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you all to the committee. So the first item is creating these 2 new positions. In the legislative request, I gave a summary of the reason why I believe these positions are critical for me and the water department to go forward. The first one is for local municipal matters. Since I arrived here, the need for more and more attention to a lot of local municipal interaction with the county has arisen over time. There is relatively little experience within the county law department to address these issues. We have very experienced assistant county attorneys, senior county attorneys, and chief assistants, but it is mostly during county matters. I think 70% of our attorneys have over 20 years of experience. But there's a unique niche with respect to local municipal matters, cities, towns, and villages. And the county has reached out to a lot of these over the last several years that have been here to increase that interaction with these. I have a lot of experience with respect to this, and I've been filling in on those things, but we really need a chief assistant to take over and oversee a lot of these issues, because it may be dealing with another attorney in the office, may deal with something dealing with planning, or dealing with finance, or dealing with one of the other departments, and IMA was a local rating of the sheriff's department. But you need to have somebody go in and make sure that this is all compliant with also the local cities, towns, and villages. And we also want somebody in there that has a practical experience, because it's one thing to simply look it up and research. Any attorney can do that. But there's a lot of things that aren't written down in local municipal law practice as to how local cities, towns, and village boards, both planning boards, CBAs, and legislative bodies act, and how they interact and go ahead and avail themselves of their necessary tools in trying to work through in this intermunicipal field between the county and local municipalities. So I think that's essential. The second one is that I'm sure you're aware, especially as my oversight committee, that the county attorney's office is the one that prosecutes all juvenile delinquency matters throughout the county. Not the DA, it's the county attorney's office. And we have seen an unprecedented rise in juvenile delinquency matters over the last several years. They have never doubled in the last several years. This had been part of another family court chief assistant duties, but it's clearly insufficient. I've had to add 1 full-time attorney internally, taking her away from other matters she was handling in litigation, and put her on juvenile delinquency along with the other 2 full-time juvenile delinquency attorneys I have. So the time has come to have a chief to oversee all of that. There's a lot of 24/7 obligations here when the juvenile delinquency, just as in the adult arena, gets arrested. There's things that have to be done late at night, early in the morning, in order to give direction to local law enforcement and courts. I'm also making a requirement as part of this position that the chief assistant is responsible for going out to municipalities, to local law enforcement, and to schools for educational and informational purposes with respect to juvenile delinquency. We do that now occasionally, but it's not really an obligation of any position, and I want to make that an obligation because I think that's very helpful from feedback that I've gotten from schools and others that receive this information. We do training, et cetera, of local law enforcement and others. So those are the two positions. That third item, or the second item, I should say, A2, that would simply be, as I said, to take out those duties from the current chief or family court and place them and bulk them up to have a full-throated chief for juvenile delinquency.
Thank you for that very thorough explanation. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or thoughts regarding A1?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These positions, you say, it says that you have, there's sufficient funding in the law department 2025 budget to
Yes.
fill them for the rest of this year. And they're proposed in the 2026 budget,
That's
correct?
correct.
So what positions are you taking that money from? And are they going to be dropped out, or you have enough money in some other position that hasn't been filled, that's vacant but funded? That's where you're taking the money from.
For this year, yes, there are two positions that are vacant but funded. One of which is being filled on September 30th, but we have had savings from the beginning of the year to September, not the beginning of the year, since maybe about June or July until now. There's another senior position that has been, we have a commitment from someone, but they are not able to come here until December. So that position will be filled in December, but there has been funds saved with respect to that, and a combination of those two will pay for these two positions for the remainder of this year.
I mean, then you're looking to have them included in 26.
That's correct, and it's in the budget.
Okay, Mr. Fecchio?
Thank you, Chair. Just two quick questions in terms of A1 regarding the local municipal positioning there. Would you say that the complexity of issues have become greater than normal? Number one, and number two, is there more volume of those matters that are being handled inside the county attorney's office?
Yes and yes. So there are more complicated, complex matters that arise at the local level that now have county involvement. A lot of times the limited amount of county involvement had to do with the Department of Planning and their GML 239 reviews to local municipalities on various planning board and zoning board matters and local legislative matters dealing with zoning. But there's a lot more that has grown up. We have cooperative agreements with a couple of municipalities with respect to sharing of police at times. There are other intermunicipal agreements that deal with a variety of matters that either arise from the local municipalities or come down from the county that we see that in order to perform our role, we're being asked to go ahead and coordinate with the local municipalities. So just but one example, there was recently a request where the county wanted to go ahead and increase some assistance to single women and children, families of single women and their children, to for battered women and other issues. They wanted to, and these are people that need services to honor the homeless consultant that we have. This is something that is needed. It needed to be in a local municipality. If that had to go through the normal planning process, et cetera, we would have delayed it very much. What we were able to do, because of my experience, but what this new position would be able to do is to go ahead and research the issue, understand how the process works at the local governments, and claim that this particular project would be exempt from zoning, even though it's a private, not-for-profit. And understand how to convince building inspectors and planning board chairs and local boards that this is the proper way to go ahead and exempt that. So all they would need is a building permit to go ahead and make sure that it complies with the state building codes, and they don't, would be exempt from all of the requirements with respect to approval. So that's the kind of thing that there's a lot of interaction between the county's obligations and the municipalities.
I would say that that scenario is rather complex in my mind. One more follow-up question. In 2A, in the second part about the juvenile justice, is this any way related to the raise the age and any unintended
Yes.
consequences of raised age?
Yeah, that's certainly a big part of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon.
Any other questions? We have, legislator Amon first.
Thanks, thank you. Thanks, Chair. Rick. I read all your stuff, and it makes perfect sense. I hear what you're saying. The question I really need to ask is, we're like a month and a half away from the budget. And we're going to be talking about our budget, which is going to take a proposal. What is urgent about this particular A that can't wait until our budget approves those positions and then it's further reviewed? Is there something urgent that we didn't know about?
There
I
are
don't
these,
know.
these various issues that I'm saying, they are present right now. We're trying to deal with them, the increase in JDs, we're trying to do that in order to try to coordinate those things. That's a present problem. And that's why I started this process several months ago. I wanted to do it correctly. I wanted to try to make it clear to the committees and the legislature on how to do this and why it's necessary. But it is needed immediately.
Hypothetically, I guess, I'm just throwing down, but hypothetically, if that request comes from the county executive and this legislature does not approve those positions, what happens then?
Well, then, for the next budget,
Yeah.
then the positions would go away.
You hire them in September, October, you'll go away when you hire them.
Yeah, they would go away if I didn't have money in the budget to support them, as with any position.
No, I understand.
Other
You
items.
stated there was
but-
money though.
What?
You said there wasn't money in the budget.
For the
For
NP.
this year, yeah.
For this year, yeah.
So my question is, if somebody, maybe it's good management policy, if somebody's hired in November, takes the job in December or January, November, and then no budget. No money, then there's all the unemployed. But if you waited until
Well,
November,
one is an internal promotion.
So if it's
which is the juvenile
unfunded, sorry to
justice.
interrupt, you, so it's unfunded, that person go back to the other position.
That one
That's not what
for,
it says.
for purposes of.
They don't want people to see and have a job.
Well, if the internal promotion, that person would have protection, not legally, but as a matter of practice with management hiring. So that person would remain. If it was an outside person for the other position versus an inside, it may well be an inside position. Then that outside person, yes, I would have to say that you're gone, but that's the same as if any budget comes along and instead of those two positions, you decide to eliminate money for 4 other positions of mine. I'd have to get rid of attorneys that I have now.
that is part of the question. But I think the circle point is it so close to the budget? And I just don't, that's why I have my question, urgency. It would seem to me that we're going to cast a budget, it'll be in November, we'll know about it. Month and a half
No, it's about 3.5 months
before it starts. But you know,
before the next starts. That's right. So I would be without these people for 3.5 months.
when it goes through the budget, and do the bad guys.
I can't hire somebody if I.
No, what is the date of the budget approval? Maybe I'm missing.
Early December,
November.
late November.
Huh?
If you wait until it's approved, we should know.
No,
It's
but it's
true.
the-
I don't know, wait,
December
if you-
17th or December 15th or
And
17th.
then
But
you, that's my
December.
question.
That's December.
Yeah, December. I
So
think
if
so,
it's
15th.
approved, you can hire, and then you have no problem, because you have to put it on next
I
year.
would
Now
prefer
you-
not to wait 3 months.
I understand that, but I'm just trying to get the emergency said, oh, you may have to have it now. Say, taking a risk, it's embarrassment. I wouldn't want to be in a position where
No, if,
the legislature turns
I'll
you down.
pivot, I'll do something else. I mean, I'm not going to not go ahead and have these issues not addressed. I'm not going to allow that to happen. If you were to take away 5 positions of mine, I'd still carry out the business of the county and figure out a way to do it.
Okay.
But this is, to me, with my experience, this is an urgent issue, which is why I'm asking for it now.
I do have, Legislator Cheney.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
questions?
As far as the chief assistant for local municipal matters, is there an aspect or a component of this that would be supportive of and assisting to local municipalities, or is this more to just put forward the county's legal position relative to interactions between the county and the municipality?
It would not be advising local municipalities that I'm not permitted to do under the charter. But what happens is that if I don't have sufficient resources to do things, then things would get postponed. So that the local municipalities' needs for cooperation with the county in one degree or another, or the county's interaction, it wouldn't be as untimely.
So relative to the 135, is that the planning?
239.
239, sorry. Relative to 239, is there going to be follow-up on the decisions that are made by the planning office, planning department, relative to projects that they make a decision on at the local municipal level, if they're not followed?
No, it wouldn't be. First of all, the law department wouldn't be involved with it. The planning department would be the one that prepares the report. If in fact, the way it's worded, as I'm sure you know, is that the planning department says for a particular project that this is disapproved, or it's approved if you incorporate these following things into your approval. If they agree to that, then that's fine. Say, if the departments, if they don't agree to these mandated requirements, or if the planning department disapproves of the project, then they have to pass it by majority plus one. If they pass it by majority plus one, to be frank, they can ignore what the planning board does, right? And there's no recourse to that. We don't have standing to challenge that. Now, somebody could challenge that, not the county, but legal standing rules, but either the applicant or somebody else who is affected by that decision could challenge that, saying that the failure of the local board to follow the planning board's recommendations, mandated recommendations, is arbitrary and capricious, and they would have the ability to go ahead and challenge it. But the county would not.
All right, thank you.
Legislator Bellin?
I don't put words in your mouth. I think your point was that the caseload is such that you have the necessity now for these positions. And I think anybody else in here can speak to your caseload and what's coming through the county's office. So I think that was the point. The caseload is here now. We're doing a disservice to the public by not getting these things through into the court systems, by not getting these through in timely manners.
That's
correct.
right.
Thank you.
Majority Leader Benton?
Yeah, just as a general rule, if these positions were not approved with the vacancies and factor in savings, the money that was left over from this year's budget would just roll into surplus for next year. And then these, if these two positions are definitely budgeted for next year, they would take effect in January 1 with the new budget. But we're just taking savings and we'll just roll to surplus. That's
Yeah, and I
rather
believe-
than using it productively.
Agree. And I believe that even with the use of that for these positions, we will still have money that will be rolled over.
Legislator Randall?
To just follow, because it just might know my position. I'm not convinced the emergency in the system versus position. I think we as a legislative body have to honor our role in approving the budget, and it's our budget. And I just appreciate the county exec saying this is what he wants and more. At the end of the day, it's us that has to approve it. And just on that point alone, I don't see the emergency. I don't know.
Legislator Duke?
Yeah, I would agree with Michael too, a little bit on that, because these positions, the budget's coming up, but you're funding 2 new positions out of existing funded positions, and then you're hiring 2 people in the same, out of that same money, and you're still gonna have money left, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know how much it is. I calculated with budget that there was enough to satisfy this.
And the new-
I don't
the new
think
hires.
that it's to the last penny. I believe that there is some monies that will roll over, but I don't know what amount that is.
No, I look, I'd rather see you spend the money on positions like this than us tax the people already on it and then just give it back. That's the whole issue that I always talk about. So the fact is that you're using some from a vacant funded position to fund this position, I'm okay with that. As long as you're telling me that you need it.
I'm telling you, I need it.
So I'm gonna, yeah, so I'd like to get this to a vote. I would like to say that only you know what you need in your department. And when it comes to something like this, I feel that we need to support what you're saying you need. That's my personal opinion. I also want to note that I believe this passed unanimously in PNC on
Yes.
Monday.
Yes.
Okay. All right, if there are no more questions or comments, I'd like to call into question. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Yes, no,
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we do have to still go over A2, request to modify the job specification for Chief Assistant County Attorney, Family Law and Juvenile Justice, title number 561760, to delete the juvenile justice responsibilities for that position. Funds are to come from the existing budget. Legislative request number 244.
So
I make that motion.
Legislators Fagione and Ravella. You did already explain this. If you'd like to do it again, you can. Otherwise, we can move on. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried. Thank you so much. Okay, and finally, we have 1B, local law amending Orange County hotel and motel occupancy tax. Local law to opt in and conform to recent state legislation allowing occupancy taxation of short-term rental units. This is legislative request number 285.
So moved.
Legislators Stiganga and Ramos.
Okay, and if everybody is very familiar with this, you can stop me any time, but I thought it would be helpful to sort of give an overview as to what, how this law came about and what its impacts are. So as you know, the state of New York has guarded forever, since the Republic started, jealously the taxing power. So the counties do not have general taxing power to tax whatever they want to tax. We can only tax to the extent that the state passes enabling legislation to allow us to impose a tax. They gave us that enabling legislation to tax hotel, motel occupancy, and we've had that in effect for some time now. And what this new law that came in earlier this year is to go ahead and allow us to also tax short-term rental units that don't fall into the category of hotels and motels. And all counties are opted in automatically unless they opt out. The deadline for that is June 22nd of next year. We are proposing to opt in because we believe that this is a significant source of revenue for the county. And it's also going to be a benefit to local municipalities. I have had conversations with many local officials, and they are looking forward to this registry so that they can understand where these short-term rentals are, because it's not that easy to determine. So the legislative request is to amend the county's existing hotel motel occupancy tax to include these short-term rentals and create the registry. If you don't create the registry under tax law 1200, I believe, then you can't tax the short-term rentals. So we're creating the registry, which is, like I said, a great benefit to local municipalities to find out where these are. Now, the rate of tax for the short-term rentals must be the same percentage as the hotel motel occupancy tax. So we can't, because the state guards it jealously. They're saying, all right, it's the same rate as you've already got permission for hotels and motels. If we want to have that raised, we would require a new request to the state legislature to raise that taxation rate. The local town, city, and village occupancy taxes and any registries that they presently have, they will continue unabated. This will not affect that. But going forward, my understanding is that, and there's some ambiguities in this law, the state itself admits that. I've gone to several conferences with respect to this, as well as studied this in detail and spoken with a lot of other county attorneys across the state with respect to this issue. But it looks like after the county establishes the registry, that nobody else in the county will be able to establish another separate registry. But anyone that has been established up to this point in time will be allowed to continue. And short-term rentals would then have 2 registries that they'd have to register with and 2 taxes that they'd have to deal with. The way it would work is that either the booking platforms, which are big 3, are Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com. So the booking platforms or individual hosts, if they're not associated with the booking platform, would be required to register with the county. And booking platforms will not, once this goes into effect, the booking platforms will no longer be able to go ahead and put somebody on their platform if they're not registered with the county's registry. Now, Orange County is in the process of completing an RFP for a consultant company to assist in this process, because it's a monumental process to set up the registry, maintain the registry, publish the registry. And part of that is looking through, scouring the internet for people that are advertising for this, and they find that out, identify these people, will tell them that they need to register in the county's registry, and they will be taxed with respect to their activity. So that's going to happen. There's one issue I wanted to raise, is that the county is permitted under the state law to go ahead and charge a fee to help cover the cost of establishing the registry. Now, there's a split decision as to whether you should do that. One is don't charge the fee because you want to encourage people to go ahead and be on the registry. And that's in the end what brings in the large revenues, not the fees. And there's others that say, well, they should cover the cost because otherwise we can't afford to go ahead and do the registry. I think the county can afford to do the registry, but that's going to be a policy decision. I have put in this local law that is at no cost because the current law for hotels and motels is at no cost. And so I have continued that. There was a survey done by the state, sent out to all the counties. Not all of them responded, about half the counties responded. And of that half said they were going to charge, half said they were not going to charge. So it's up in the air. But I'll tell you that the draft local law that I've submitted to you does not set a fee for the registry. If a fee is to be set to register, it can only be related to the reasonable and related cost of establishing the registry. It cannot be a revenue raiser. So I just wanted to bring up that issue. Now, the state law provides for certain health and safety requirements for short-term rental units. And everybody registering must self-attest that they have these, such as fire extinguishers, exit signs, and other health and safety issues that are required by the state building codes. The county will not be enforcing that aspect of it. That, as always, has been within the jurisdiction of the local town, city, and village building inspectors, and they would have the ability to go ahead and enforce that in their normal way. This would just be another requirement that they would have. They would look at this legislation and say, all right, make sure that they have at a minimum these things, although the state building codes require more than minimum. The state law requires that the county's registry list be prominently displayed on the county's website. We obviously do that. And this will allow the cities, towns, and villages to identify all those short-term rentals in their jurisdiction. And as I said, the officials I've spoken to very much want that. And they wanted to, one, either bring enforcement actions for people that are not permitted under the zoning codes and are running that, or looking positively on it, they can determine, why don't we make this area something that can have short-term rentals and other similar places. So they may, given what's happening in their jurisdiction, that's what happens at the local level all the time with respect to zoning. They can adjust their zoning to either accommodate it or still prohibit it, and then they can take zoning enforcement action. But all of that will happen at the local level. The enforcement of unpaid short-term rental occupancy taxes is the same for the hotel, motel occupancy taxes. And that is that I can institute an enforcement lawsuit Or, which is a more likely path, is that the county may transform these unpaid taxes into a lien on the property by way of a sheriff's warrant and turning that into a lien on the property, recording that in the county clerk's office, and then that will, as any other tax lien, that will be on the property and would have to be paid before the property is transferred to somebody else. I think that's all I have to try to give you an overview. The local law itself, the draft local law itself that I have provided shows in bold the deletions by strike-throughs and the underlines as additions to your present occupancy, hotel and motel occupancy tax law. Doesn't give you the whole law, just gives you the provisions that are being changed, which is standard practice and how we do that. That's it.
Okay, questions? Legislator Perdue?
Yeah, it's the interesting part of that. Can you explain or give me the definition of short-term rental? My question would be, you own a four-family house and you have rentals month to month. Are you included in that short rental fee? You have to pay your percentage plus paying your county tax?
Michael, I must say that it's a very good question, a question I should have come prepared to answer, but I don't recall the state's, we're adopting the state's short-term rental unit definition, and I don't recall the specific definition. I can find that out.
I believe
Yeah,
it's
that's
under
important.
30 days. It's under 30 days.
That's,
So
that
it's-
sounds.
yeah, anything that's under
like I
30
recall, but
days,
I can't say.
very rarely are you going to get somebody who's staying for that period unless it's
Or so you have a rental and the guys go month to month and it's under, so he's there for 30 days. You're saying it's under.
but he's not, because if he's staying and he's going month to month, it's a
Yes.
continual month. So your 30 days turns into 60 days, which turns into 90. So you just have to have a month to month lease or a month to month agreement. So this would be specifically where you're paying nightly. You're not paying for a full stay. They charge you per night when you're staying. So, I mean, if you want to pay the $300 a night for 30 days.
If you get
you know,
Airbnb
but
and
it's
you're
not-
there for 3 weeks, you
You
know,
could be, but it would be, they charge you per night. They charge you just like a hotel motel would. You're not paying for a long,
I'd
you
like
know,
to
like
just
a
make
rental.
sure I can see that.
I will send it to every member
It's
of the
definitely-
committee, the state definition of short-term rental.
All right, I have Legislator Semanca.
So, I had just a couple of questions, because I know I've been working on this as well. On the town and village levels, if they already have a short-term rental code or something in the other, you know, A360s and stuff, how is that going to affect them? Because some of them already have where they, you know, you have to register, it has to be inspected, it's inspected according to the motel or hotel, so the inspections are a little bit different than just a regular fire safety inspection. But there's usually a charge associated with that to do all that. Is that gonna be affected now?
Nothing changes with respect to those local regulations dealing with restrictions on short-term rentals, either where they are or any other regulations that they have, or with respect to registering, or with respect to how they charge for that. This will not affect that in any
Okay.
respect.
The follow-up on that, what if you have a village or a town that has basically said, I don't want these Airbnbs, and have put legislation in or resolutions in where you can't have an Airbnb? How does that get affected?
Well, that gets affected, and that's one of the concerns of local municipalities and why they're looking forward to the registry, is that now they will know where those are. A lot of them, and I represent a lot of municipalities, and it's a real problem. They don't know where these are unless they hire somebody to scour the internet and look at who's advertising on it. And sometimes that's a whack-a-mole kind of process.
Well, a lot of them
So-
have been hidden behind because of the fact that they passed a resolution that says we don't allow short-term rental.
Right, so what will happen now is that they'll look at the registry and they will be laser focused on their municipality. They'll see exactly where there are short-term rental units in activity in their jurisdiction. And if they're not permitted and they don't want them to be permitted, then they have the ability to go and use enforcement actions against them under the zoning code to stop.
Okay, I just didn't know if this passing through the state basically negated that
No.
original resolution.
No,
so
it doesn't.
that-
Doesn't affect it. In fact, it specifically says that they are not.
All right, thank you. I have Legislator Ramos.
So this to confirm, the enforcement action of a tax lien or a potential lawsuit comes into play if one of these short-term rental properties does not register? Or when would that enforcement?
We would have to decide, it's enforcement of the tax they failed to pay. So if they didn't register and we have proof that in fact they existed, they owe the tax for that, whether or not they registered. And if they failed to pay that, then we would go ahead and try to turn that into a tax lien against them.
Thank you.
Legislator Cutler?
Does campgrounds fall into this in any way?
There's a specific definition of what is a short-term rental unit. I'll send that to everybody, and that's all that this applies to.
So if I have a campground, I can bring a tent, I can bring a pop-up, but I can also rent the place at the campground that has something that is short-term.
I'd have to look at the definition to determine whether or not, under that circumstance, they would fit into a short-term rental. It's possible that it could. You know, if somebody's renting out a unit in a campground, then that might be captured. I have to look at the definition that I'll send to everybody. And then I would have to get that.
Legislator Rivera?
You said earlier that the county's gonna put an RFP. What do you have timing on when that might take place?
We're hoping that it will be out to bid in the early part of October. And so hopefully we'll have somebody on board at the end of October starting to work on this registry. So I think it will be full force in effect sometime in early December. That's my best guess right now. Might be earlier than that
If this law passes, though, correct?
if this law passes. Yeah. We don't have any power to go ahead and tax short-term rentals unless. Yeah, well, take that back. If you didn't want to tax short-term rentals, then because you're automatically opted in, I've just done it in a way that conforms our tax to the new law. But we are opted in automatically unless you pass a resolution that says we're opting out. And you have until June 26th, 22nd, and 26th to do that. If you opt out, you can always opt out back in.
Thank you.
Chairman Hines?
Yeah, in the beginning of the law, you have the word motel, and then as it goes on, you redact motel. Why is that?
Because if you look at the definition of hotel, it includes motel.
Yeah, but it's in the beginning, you don't redact.
Just the name of the law.
When you get to the definition of hotel, that the stated purpose, et cetera, is before you get to the definition. When you get to the definitions of hotel.
All right, as long as you're good with it.
Yeah, no, what happens is that the definition of hotel includes the specific term motel. And therefore, since motel is included in the definition of hotel, you only need to use hotel after that because it includes motel.
We have like a handshake agreement with Airbnb now, okay, that's right.
There is an existing voluntary something agreement, VCA, that we have with Airbnb. That's right. And they, every so often, they send us a check. We have no idea whether or not that's the right amount or whether it's a third of the amount that they collect. And some of the times in our dealings with Airbnb and Vrbo, who have contacted us, because they are contacting all the counties. So I've had conversations with them and their attorneys. And, you know, they have admitted that we'll try to get a better agreement with you because, yeah, we don't capture all of those. And also, they made it clear that they were trying to make a distinction as whether or not they actually put somebody on their booking platform or somebody else just used their booking platform. And they may only be doing things on which they have taken affirmative action. In other words, you're trying to skirt, in my opinion, the law with respect to full taxation of everybody that is on their booking platform.
So they have no liability, just the owner of the property.
That's
Under
correct.
this law.
That's correct.
And if we don't choose to do this, then does that knock the towns and villages out as well?
Well, you'll have no registry, yeah.
And then my other question is, should there be a penalty for not registering built into the law?
I imagine that you could do that. You would have the power to have that. I've never seen that in any others. So you would have to have a certain notice, you'd have to provide that there be certain notice given to them and opportunity for them to be heard. And then if they refuse to go ahead and impose a fee, so I mean, a penalty. So in my opinion, yes, that's within your jurisdiction to do, but it would have to follow certain due process requirements to do it. Whether or not on balance it's worth that rather than just getting them on the registry and taxing them from that point would be an issue for you to decide.
And if they collect the tax and don't pay it, that's tax fraud.
If,
If the Airbnb person collects the tax and doesn't send it to us, that's fraud on their part.
yeah, but as soon as they register somebody, we will know that they owe so much, so we'll say, why aren't you paying this?
We're not gonna know that they booked the room that night. If they don't tell you.
Well, they will tell us, they can't put somebody on, they can't book somebody who's not in the registry. They're not allowed to do that per the state law.
Right. But if I do that and I rent the room for 10 nights and I only tell you I did it for 2, you have no way of knowing.
Well, yes, we do, you know, in a backhanded way through this consultant that we'll get. We'll be searching the internet and finding out whether or not people are advertising for more than one night, 10 nights, and how that's being presented by, say, Airbnb.
But you're not gonna know they actually booked it. You find out they offered it, but you don't know that somebody stayed there or didn't stay. It's gonna be a self-reporting system, I presume.
Not without accounting, you know.
Well,
I don't see a way to audit it, that's.
it's not a perfect way to audit it, no. Right now, we have no auditabilities with respect to Airbnb. We just get a check. We have no idea what that represents. So we will be ending that agreement when this, if this goes into effect.
But they're gonna keep paying in the interim.
They have to, they're required by state law to go ahead and pay once the law goes into effect. They're
I'm talking
actually,
about the handshake agreement with Airbnb. They're
Or
gonna
the call.
continue paying until this goes into effect.
They have to pay
I
now.
assume, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're required to pay, right? And they're actually, the state law says, since everybody's opted in automatically, the state law says that the taxes were due commencing in, I believe it was March
This year.
of this year.
Correct.
That all of those taxes are due.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Yes, there's 13.
Yes. Do we have an idea as to how much tax we would expect to be receiving every year?
No, because I don't know. I don't know how much we have collected. Gary Gallagher would know that figure. But we don't know we don't know, right? We don't know what's out there, who is renting out there that we don't know about. That's the whole purpose of it. But when you talk to other counties that have started to institute this, they say that they have had tremendous increases.
So the burden continues to fall on local municipality relative to whatever law they have and the enforcement that they have
As
to
to whether or not
do.
they have the right to exist.
right to exist, and then do they meet the building and fire
Yeah,
code
yeah,
regulations?
I can take
Is there consideration to share any of this tax revenue that the county is going to receive with the local municipalities in order to offset some of the costs that they're incurring?
Well, these are the costs and the obligations they have right now, and always have had. They have the obligation to determine where they want short-term rentals to be, and if they want a registry, they could have started the registry. And so those, and the enforcement with respect to the safety issues, those are traditionally local building inspector issues. So those-
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't share anything with them now as to hotels and motels. And we're not going to be, this doesn't provide that we'd be sharing. I mean, there could be an agreement separate from this, whereby the county says that it will share tax monies. It's the same way it is with sales tax, right? Whether or not the county wants to do that. This doesn't provide anything.
I guess the local municipality has more involvement in the game than the county does. The county is going to create the registry, and then once the registry is created, continue to collect the taxes. The local municipality then is the one that's responsible if they're allowed, or even if they're not allowed, to enforce, take somebody to court or make sure that the building codes are being complied with.
Been the way since zoning came into effect around these areas in the 1950s. That's always been responsible.
But why is the county getting revenue that maybe some of the local municipalities should get a share of in order
They
to
have
be
the
able to
ability
do
to
their
ask for
job?
their own taxation.
Right.
They have the ability to do that right now. Some walking. So they can get authority, ask the state to give them authority to tax hotel motels, and which a lot of them do. Town of Goshen, I believe, has some. Yeah, well, there's probably at least a half a dozen local municipalities that have hotel, motel, occupancy taxes. They can adopt one dealing with short-term rentals.
I guess the answer is no.
But that's not for me to decide whether or not we should share taxation. I'm just trying to present the local law to either opt in, as we are trying to do, or opt out if you didn't want to, I guess.
Okay, any other questions?
No, just, can I just real quick on, one of the things that we looked up at NICEAC is right now they're showing that we have about 3,200 Airbnb, Vrbo, and there's like 5 or 6 other little stuff, not counting Marketplace, and not counting the fact that one of the big things people are doing now is if they're repeat. So like in our case, we have West Point. People come up here for specifically for the wineries for different events. They will not go through the actual services anymore because they've created a relationship with somebody and they book the same room the same week or the same event every single year, and they bypass the booking. So I don't know how we'd actually be able to follow that unless you had somebody who drove around to see what people are actually staying there and so forth.
Well, sometimes, I mean, the way that things like this have happened in the past, and this will continue to go. And I agree, it's not a perfect
Yeah, it's
system. You can't capture everything by this system. But what presently happens with respect to short-term rentals, especially those that are not allowed in a municipality, is that the local municipality gets calls from neighbors. Say, listen, I have all these people coming in every week, they're having parties and everything else. And the zoning official goes out and investigates and determines whether or not they enforce it. So I think that those calls will come to those people that may have independent outside of the process agreements. They may still get caught by their neighbors.
Only if there's big problems.
I know, but if you keep narrowing it down, it's not a big problem.
So I have a quick question. So is it that, if a local municipality has already established a registry, because I understand that once the county establishes it, municipalities can no longer establish their own rate.
But I believe that's the case, that they can no longer establish it afterwards. It's not clear right now,
Okay.
but the state's interpretation is that after the county establishes it, local municipalities can establish their own registry, because they want to have more centralized registries. But the ones that exist right now have a right to continue.
Okay, and then if the municipality does decide to, adopt their own hotel motel occupancy tax, then the tax would be, like, would it be that both the local municipality and the county is like,
Same thing as it is with hotel and motel.
Yeah. okay.
Okay, Legislative Cheney, I think we'll wrap this up.
How do we know from a hotel or a motel, how many nights? Is there some sort of a affidavit that they have to provide, and how do we enforce that?
I don't know the answer to that. Terry Gallagher, who you know, or staff knows how that tax is reported. And I don't know what the tax on the acre.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so if there are no more questions or comments, I'd like to call into question. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here for all the thorough explanations.
Madam Chair?
Okay.
You can go.
Next up, we have Alan Sorensen, the Commissioner of Planning. Butler, Deputy Commissioner of Planning.
Sorry. That's okay.
Okay. Okay, so we have a request to authorize the county executive to execute a funding agreement between the County of Orange and the Village of Woodbury in accordance with the Open Space Fund award letter, together with the authority of the county executive to sign any and all documents necessary to accept and record a conservation easement by the Village of Woodbury to the County of Orange over the premises known as 231 and 271 Smith Clove Road in the Village of Woodbury, New York, and described as section 218, lot 2, lots 49 and 53 on the county tax map. Legislative request 289.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Legislators Fagion and Ravella. Okay,
Madam Chair, thank you. First, I want to thank everyone for allowing us to be on the agenda, and also apologize to the staff for the kind of last minute request here. But if you recall back in, I believe it was May, the legislature passed a resolution authorizing the Department of Planning and the County Attorney's Office to move forward with developing all the documents necessary to accept and record a conservation easement with the Village of Woodbury. They're acquiring 25.6 acres of land for a public park. And the county, through the Open Space Fund, will be providing $225,000 as a match to the $450,000 acquisition cost of that 25.6 acre property. So since that time, I've been working with Donna and with Betsy and to prepare the documents that are necessary to accept and record the conservation easement. Those documents are drafted, and we are now back before the legislature asking for your authorization for you to authorize the county executive to sign these agreements now that they've been drafted.
anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, Chairman.
Yeah, it's more confidential. Is that still confidential even after today? The documents at least that are in front of us?
Did we furnish them? We furnished them.
Their stamp's
did we not?
confidential.
It was provided solely to the.
They are
legislators. They
together.
were-
So
Thank you.
just for all legislators, you have documents in your hand that are listed as confidential.
Confidential, yes.
Because it's not signed yet by the other side.
Outside, yes.
That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else? No. Okay.
One point of clarification, in addition to authorizing the county exec to sign the documents, concurrently asking the legislature to classify for seeker purposes, to classify the acceptance of the conservation easement as a seeker type 2 action, which it is in accordance with section 617.5 subsection C39.
Can you do a separate motion for that?
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
Secret, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That's gonna have to be a separate resolution.
Yeah.
So what we can do is, I thought that was included in the title here, the seeker issue, so that will have to be, there'll be a motion to add the seeker, a vote to amend it so that the seeker will be included in this resolution that was already brought forward here. So,
So we're doing that.
if that is what. the
So
committee
one
wants
of
to
us
do.
would have to make a motion
What
to
somebody
amend,
on the
okay.
committee will have to make a motion to amend to include the seeker determination. There'll be a vote to include that in the resolution, and then we'll do a vote altogether for the main resolution itself.
And what type is it?
Type 2.
That's a type 2.
Type 2. That's gotta be.
And if I could just say something, and just from a seeker perspective, although many times you will have a full resolution dealing with a seeker determination of type 2, when you have it, it's not normal. And it's certainly not required by seeker. If something is a type 2, you don't have to take any steps. You don't even have to assume lead agency or anything else. You can, it's a type 2, therefore doesn't need anything. You can just pass it without anything. So that's also a path that you can take.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So,
Why don't you have Betsy state the motion and then pick?
okay, somebody will do it, yes, okay, please.
So it's gonna be a motion to amend, to include the secret, type 2, determination.
Who would like to make that?
Madam Chair, since I made the original motion, I would suggest that I would like to make that amendment as stipulated by our attorney.
Okay.
And amend my
So we have-
second as well.
Yes,
Thank you.
so we have, so on the amended version, we have legislators Fagion and Rivella. Okay, so now, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried, okay. So now we will vote on the original request with the amendment. Okay, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay. There we go, I think we got that done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much. The desk is clear. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Legislators Matute and Ganga. All in favor? Okay, great. Have a great day.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.